Alright, so where to start with reassembling this cabinet? Well, first I'll take the chassis out, and then I'll clean up the inside with a damp rag, get rid of the dirt and dust that's accumulated over the years. I'll unmount the speaker and speaker board from the front, and then I think I'll start out with reattaching this trim. Now, I'm not going to strip this before I start gluing it back together. Reason being is that I may slop some glue on to the surface, and this will offer some protection against that also as I clamp it and so on. This offers a little bit of protection so I don't ding up the underlying veneer. I'm also curious when I unmount the speaker board. There is a chance that in some areas, like maybe down in here, I can remove a patch of the original grill cloth and fix that up there. More likely though, it's going to be a different color because this has been exposed to air and light for many years, and it's probably a different color. There's another possibility though. I do have 3 packets of unused grill cloth that I got for other projects. And this one doesn't look too bad. Now, the set that I bought this for is what I called Frankenstein Tombstone, in that it's a conglomeration of like 5 different hacked up sets. This just happens to match the grill cloth that it came with, but that's hardly original, so I don't mind using it in this set instead. Now, obviously it's not the same. As I said, there is no reproduction grill cloth that was ever made for this radio, but being how hard it is to find any grill cloth of any kind right now, this might not be a bad way to go. I think it'll be big enough too. It's a 12 by 12 patch, so that should be enough to span it in both dimensions, I think. Well, anyway, I'll start disassembling this stuff, clean up the dirt, and see what we've got. So the speaker in this set is a standard Philco mid-30s. I think it's a 6-inch speaker. I've got the same speaker in a number of my Philco radios. There's definitely some extra grill cloth poking out over here, but looks like they trimmed it out pretty tightly around in here. As is so often the case, all these nuts are fairly loose. Just take them off my hand. Not sure why that is. I don't know if the vibration of the radio playing all these years or loosens them up or what the deal is. But here's another problem I often encounter. The screw heads are on the other side of the board. I think I can get this one loose. So the screw is loose. The heads are on the other side underneath the grill cloth. The nuts are tightened on the back. Over time, often the heads become loose, so they just start turning. So as you try to loosen up the nuts, the screw just keeps turning and turning. What I just did to get it off is I pulled up on it as I was loosening up the nut. I was pulling up on the screw to put pressure on the head so the nut would turn, but not the screw. This one's turning as well. I might have to get a tool for this. Instead of using needle nose pliers, what I ended up doing was spraying a bit of this penetrating oil onto it. Also removed all the nuts holding this board on, so the speaker should come right off, so should that board. Alright, so I hope the speaker is looking quite good. It's a little bit of a dent right there, but otherwise that's in as good a condition as I've ever seen a speaker of this vintage be in. Oh, that's not what I thought the grill cloth was going to come off with this board, but that's just a spacer. So a piece of foam here, and then each corner out for a little padding. This lifts right out. Huh, you know, it's faded, but not as much as I would have thought. So if I was to scavenge a little bit of cloth from around the edge, or say the top corner here, and put it there, it'll be a little darker for sure. I'm not sure what I want to do about that. Yeah, I can certainly ponder that while I work on the rest of this. Alright, so around the perimeter we've got all these little nails. Let's see, do those actually go through the front? Yeah, they do. They're sitting there pretty well. Probably a little filler on them, but so I got two options. One, I can try to bend them all straight like that and line them up with the old holes, so I can put this together and thread them through like that. Or I can just tap them from the back and remove them entirely and just go with glue to hold this together, or get myself some new nails. Looks like some are already missing too. So this nail is just gone, and the other one pulled through from the front and it's still stuck in the back of the cabinet. Looks like there's a few missing around the perimeter as well. I suppose if it's not too much of a hassle, I can straighten these out, maybe run to the hardware store, pick up a few new ones. Because it will certainly help hold this together while the glue sets up. But before I do the front, I want to reattach the side. The top just fits right back together. Don't have to do anything to it. Down here, sort of, I don't know what you call that, a rabbit joint, something like that. A groove cut on one side, and bit of wood sticking out on the other. I know that's kind of chewed up, but hopefully just a little bit of cleaning up there. Squirt some glue in there, clamp this whole thing back together. We'll take care of that side, and then maybe tighten up the glue blocks on the other side. Let's see, they're both there up on that side, both still there on this side. So it looks like I didn't lose any glue blocks. That's a good thing. I've got the cabinet cleaned up pretty well, and I noticed while doing the back side of it, there's actually quite a bit of separation. Starting, about an inch in, there's a lot of delamination here. So, I think the first order of business might be to squirt some glue in there and clamp the heck out of this to get this all back together, and then glue that side back on. Alright, so here's the plan of attack. I'm going to squeeze in along the back edge first and get this all taken care of. And in order to do that, I popped off this molding so I can put a strong piece of hardwood across the top to get this all, flat. Turned out to be quite easy. It was already rather loose, so it's just as well, so I can glue it back down tight. Alright, so right now I'm putting a bit of water down in there just to loosen things up a little bit, and then I'll start putting in some glue. And this split actually goes down quite deep, probably all the way like down to here, so it's worse than I imagined, so I want to make sure the glue really gets down in there. Alright, I worked a whole bunch of type-on wood glue down into the separated layers, and then got some good strong straight boards, one on either side, and I'm now clamping the heck out of it, and I'll let this sit probably overnight just to make sure that glue's really set up strong. Alright, I took the clamps off, and the separated veneer and plywood layers are all nice and tight back together. So now I'm ready to move on to putting the side back on, and it fits pretty well. When I clamp that down, that crack should close right up. And here there's a little bit of a void, not a big deal, because I can fill that with wood filler, because this gets covered with black lacquer. So there's going to be a flaw somewhere. That's the place to have it, because the grain will be completely obscured. But before I glue this back on, this also has some separating wood layers here, so I want to get some glue in there and clamp it up. Alright, I got this side glued up. Now I could just squirt some glue into that joint there and up at the top and get some of the glue blocks and clamp this up and let it dry. However, I could be very unhappy if I did that if this thing is racked. In other words, if the corners aren't at right angles, or more specifically, if the front doesn't fit. Who's to say these are actually right angles? So what it is, I went ahead and I took all the nails out, which was a bit of a challenge on some of these. I had to get a little knife out and dig out the wood putty and then tap the nails carefully from the other side, while trying very hard not to split or damage the wood. Alright, so now what I can do is get glue on the side and the joints and all that and fit the front on while it's setting up to make sure that the front's actually going to fit when all is said and done. It actually fits pretty well on the three sides that are already done. It's just kind of like grooves behind this on the top and bottom, and then the sides kind of fitting around that. So even just as a dry fit, it actually goes back together fairly well, but definitely need to put some pressure on there. Like for example here, this should be flush, so this whole thing needs to be squeezed a bit, kind of more like that, so there's not a gap anywhere. Alright, so things are looking fairly promising. Clamping will be a bit of a challenge. I'll have to use some longer like pipe clamps rather than the C-clamps I've been using for most of this. Clamping along this top edge where it's split at basically a 45-degree angle proved to be just a real pain, so I put a clamp on across the top and along the side to get it more or less in the right place, and then I just tacked in a couple small nails to hold it in place while the glue sets. That seam is pretty tight. Most importantly, the top is fit on all around the sides, so once this glue totally sets up, I don't have any fear that the front won't actually fit back on the cabinet. Okay, this side is now firmly reattached, which leaves the front. I think before I reattach this, I better remove the dial escutcheon. It's held on by 4 small nails on the back, so I'll work those loose. Well, that was fairly easy to get off. I just had to pry out those 4 little nails. Now I thought that this piece was also metal, but I finally took a closer look and realized that that's actually wood. So that's not coming out. That'll just get stripped and refinished with a dark color. Perhaps that should be black just like the trim. And now I can go about reattaching the front. So I'll put a bead of glue all around and then get this set down and good, and then I will reuse some of the original nails and I'll clamp it as well. Alright, the glue has set up, the clamps have come off, and everything is looking really good. All the joints are nice and tight and strong. So that leaves one task, which is to install the trim. Oh, and before I put this front on, I scraped off the old glue, and I noticed there actually wasn't a whole lot of it. Some along the top middle, bottom middle, and just a few spots on each side. So It might have been of benefit to me, and that's why the thing fell apart so easily. I don't know, but put a good thick bead of glue around all the sides now. Between that and the nails, I don't think this front's coming off anytime soon. Now, something else I need to do on this cabinet is fill in the nail holes. I've tried various putties over the years, and I think this works as well as any. Actually better in some ways because it dries quickly. It also sands nice. I picked up some walnut, so even though I'm going to put toner over it, might as well start out with a dark color to begin with. So smear some of this on, and the dry time, I think they say it's a couple hours. Oh, only 1 hour. Okay, that's why I like it. I got some water-based stuff too from Elmer's, but it takes a lot longer to fully set up. Also, they say explicitly on here that you can put lacquer over this. That's my other concern. I was looking at some latex-based wood filler, but it didn't say what you could put over this. This specifically says stained, varnished, painted, or lacquered. I'm getting ready to reattach the piece of trim that goes on the top of the cabinet. Before I do, though, I made sure to scrape off all the old glue residue. Just use a razor blade on this and make sure to clean around the old nails. I'm going to reuse those, so I just left them in. And for here, I used a small chisel. But in addition to the glue, I noticed there was a bit of some wood in there. You can see the remains of it. It's a little bit different color here, so there's actually some wood in there. And I ended up taking all that out too to make this a nice clean channel, but what I didn't realize was that that bit of wood was there for a reason, because there's a lip here now. This top edge is higher than this groove, so if I was to glue this down, it'll make contact on the back edge, but this front will be raised up a bit, and there's going to be a void in between this and that. The top of the cabinet. Now, sure, there'll be some glue in there and it'll kind of fill the void, but it's not going to be as strong a bond as it could be. So I'm just going to take a piece of thin veneer and cut out a strip, and that should make things nice and level with this front edge. I suppose I could also cut a notch out of this to make it flush with this groove, but I really don't want to do that. Alright, that worked out perfectly. It's now flush at the front edge here, so I can go ahead and squirt some more glue in there and hammer this piece of trim down. Alrighty, now just one last piece to go. This time I won't need to put in a shim. It's still got the existing one. It's in pretty good shape. So I'll scrape a little bit of glue off, get it all lined up, and tack a few more nails in. I just spent a few minutes steaming the dented in area, and it's not 100% out, but it's a lot better than it was. I can just barely feel a little depression there. What I did was I just dipped my finger in some water and dabbed it on that area, put a cloth over it, dabbed a bit more water, and then used the tip of the iron to just steam that area. Also did a little bit over here, and that also came out nice and level. Alright, so I guess the next thing up is to strip the cabinet. I searched around online and found some examples of this model. Now this first one I'm showing you, I pulled up in particular, is an example of how not to refinish a cabinet. This one looks like it's been stripped, maybe had a little stain slobbed onto it, and then it was clear coated. No grain filler, no toner lacquer, no reproduction decal, and incorrect grill cloth. Now this is what I'm going to strive for. It's got the correct black toner lacquer on all the trim. It's Looks like it's been grain filled. It's got a nice sheen to it. It has reproduction Philco logo on it. Very nice, I think. Grill cloth is not correct, but then there is no, or was no, reproduction cloth ever made of this style, but this is fairly close. Main differences being the original for this set was darker, kind of a dark green with gold threads, and the stripes were running horizontally, or the grain to it. So one thing I'll definitely have to find is a set of knobs. I might have one or two of these left over from when I did my Philco 60L, otherwise we'll be on the hunt. I know reproductions are available, and the usual antique radio knob vendors have them. They're fairly common, so it's just a matter of money to get a set. So here are the two choices I've found. There is no black in the line of classic toners. These are what they call, I think, the modern style type toner. In other words, these are colors that are used in furniture currently in production. So we've got Plantation Cove Black and Studio One Black. I have no idea what the difference is. I would have thought black is black. So if any of you have an opinion, please let me know.